All right, so here we are. Playoffs are supposed to be starting, and no. And of course, I didn't expect to have any update on anything NHL related when it comes to their decisions. And here we are, we don't have any updates on that. So, one thing that's come out, and this is pure speculation because that's what we're left with is so once we know who's drafting first, what if it's the Red Wings? What if Stutzle went number one? So speculation has become, and Craig Button tweeted out about this, and now it's kind of getting picked up. What if the Detroit Red Wings did it again? So last year, when drafting, he drafts Sider at 6, and people were like, "Wait, what?" And it made some sense to some scouts who had seen Sider as a guy who was moving up during the year and getting better. Stutzla kind of has done the same thing. Now he's very likely to go anywhere from 2 to 4, but the fact that he may very well end up going at 2 tells you how talented he's been, and for him to push Byfield down says a lot about Stutzla's potential. So it's out there, the idea that maybe he would go at 1 to Detroit and Lafreniere would go at 2. Now, if I'm Steve Yzerman and I don't intend on drafting Lafreniere at 1, I look at maybe moving that pick to somebody else who wants Lafreniere at 1 if I can move down to 2. So I might look down and I might look at it and say, you know what? You want Lafreniere? All right. Or something like that. Think like 1999 where draft picks get moved around. The Patrick Stefan deal, which had some Sedin twins that came after him. And again, we'll see what happens. But if Detroit drafts him at 1, we'll have a lot to talk about then, won't we? We'd have a lot to talk about. And definitely that would be Steve Yzerman taking a bit of a risk because Lafreniere is seen as this big star player on the way. And Stutzle is as well. I'm not taking anything away from him, but it's been Lafreniere's draft the whole way through. So if he didn't end up going number 1 overall, that'd be huge news. Slepyshev, big old psych to Edmonton fans everywhere, gets an offer from the Oilers and kind of says, well, thanks, but... And he signs to stay in the KHL with CSKA Moscow for 2 more years. So at that point, he'll be turning 28, and the likelihood of the Oilers necessarily looking for him at age 28, I would say it's a lot less likely because over the next 2 seasons, they should be adding at least 1 or 2 more wingers, and you've got Yamamoto that's up now, and there's others that might be on the way. Benson may end up being an answer on a wing as well. He can play at center, but he may end up being a top 6 winger. So for the Oilers, not getting Slepyshev, that I guess on some level might hurt a little bit right now, but I think they'll be fine. I do. I think the Oilers are in pretty good shape going forward. Cam Crotty, who was a third rounder, I believe, for the Arizona Coyotes, signs a 3-year entry-level contract. He's a defenseman, so there you go. He'll have a shot at a job. It was after his third year at Boston University, so nice to see more guys signing their entry-level contracts, and those are the easy ones right now. For a general manager, it's very easy to get guys signed entry-level contracts because they can only sign for a certain amount of money. The UFAs, the RFAs, that you guys are like, hey, when are we going to see a big signing for this guy and that guy? They really can't negotiate very much right now. It's sort of like Torrey Krug yesterday saying, well, we haven't really had much negotiations. The Bruins aren't in a position to negotiate because they don't know what the cap's going to be next year. The cap is going to be, it could be a disaster. So depending on how the NHL and the NHLPA agree to deal with that, who knows? Jeremy Rutherford on Twitter, writer for The Athletic, talking about free stories and support local, which is something that's weird. We've talked about this for a long time. The day when you're supposed to support local business, the day you're supposed to, right? And so there is something to be said for supporting local. The weird thing is for me, at my age, it feels like it's kind of late. I remember when not everything was a chain restaurant and a chain store. I remember that. I remember when there were more chains of each, and you had more variety. And I remember things being a lot less, I don't know, like the Costco experience, where you've got millions of people all sandwiched into a small store. Everybody's going nuts over whatever it is that day, and you got free samples of all this crap that tastes terrible. I avoid samples often. Why are you giving that? I'm not touching that. So yeah, the whole support local thing is great. So they tell you where the Cardinals eat, and this is another thing too. They're trying to support restaurants, and I agree with that 110%. I know local restaurants we've been buying where we can from, and again, our budget's definitely dropped, but where we can support local, we have been. And I've mentioned how now if I'm buying something on eBay, I try to make sure I'm buying from a Canadian seller, that kind of thing, where I'm trying to help out where I can, and I know there's other people doing that as well, and I'm not sure why it took something this dramatic for us to say, we should support local business. We should have been supporting them all along, really. There's some good quality. There's nothing that frustrated me more over the years than seeing good stores and good owners going out of business because there's some big chain store next door that's this huge deal everybody goes nuts over, and then you go into that store and you're saving like 10 cents. Like there were times where I would go into, Save on Foods is a good example, but you can use almost any, where I'd go in and go, well, I could buy it at that store and not have to wait 20 minutes in line. And yeah, my whole order might cost me $2 more, but I'll pay that $2 not to have to wait in a line and to support, this staff that I really like at this store or restaurant, for instance, too. So we'll see whether or not this theme lasts after this is done and when the economy starts to show signs of recovering. And it's got to happen at some point because, again, can't afford to all stay locked up forever because that's not how supply chains work, right? So kudos to St. Louis and to others as well that are, saying, hey, support local businesses during this time. And yeah, again, I'm hoping for as few losses of restaurants as possible because we're already basically just chains. And there's already few enough of the restaurants that aren't chains around, so I'd like to see as many of them survive as possible. Usually when you're out with friends, you're like, hey, we should go to, that little place, and that can often be the place that you really end up enjoying quite a bit. And it can be just not a chain at all. Now, players are undecided as to what they're going to do with their last checks, still, according to Darren Dreger. So right now, the escrow. So here's, and again, I've explained this before, I'll throw this in here. Escrow is, it's basically a tax on their check, where it's a percentage of their check that they don't get that goes into the NHL coffers, and then a year or two down the road, the NHL decides whether they get any of that money or if it just stays where it is because the amount of money the NHL made wasn't what they'd expected. So right now the percentage is 14%. 14% of their checks go to escrow. So when you look at an NHL player's salary, you go, hey, he made $12 million this year. Well, no, he made about $9 million, well, 9.5 right out of 12. So yes, they made a lot of money, but that's a lot of money too that's going off to escrow. So players are always concerned with where that's going. But this year, with what we're going through right now, there's concern that it's going to get a lot worse. So they're thinking about taking that entire last check and putting it into escrow just to make it so it's less painful later for them. And they haven't decided on how that's going to work. So we'll see what they do. And again, and I've seen people saying this, and I'm not sure. I see the posts like, well, I don't really care. They're millionaires. Why do I care? Well, that's always the case, though. Like, they're always millionaires, and we always watch sports, and we're always following them. So what happens with them is newsworthy. And no, they don't go through a lot of the stress and strain that those of the rest of us who aren't millionaires go through. And I'm not a millionaire. So I understand that aspect, but that's always there. So and I understand right now, emotions are kind of heightened and people are kind of, a little antsy, but, again, I still think it's newsworthy when they're taking, their checks, which are significant, going, I have to throw this into escrow, the whole thing, because I don't know what we're going to make next year and I've just got to do this. Colby Cave. Now, I didn't talk about this yesterday because it's not a good story. It's a sad story that, in all honesty, I don't on the face of it, when you hear medically induced coma, that means that they're trying to just stop all superior brain function, basically, and in the hopes that it doesn't it does, there's no swelling, and that it heals itself. So what they're looking for is that his brain will heal itself and that he wakes up and he's okay. The longer he's in a coma, the less chance there is that he's 100% okay after. So the longer you're in a coma, the longer it takes to learn things again and to get back to 100%. And if it goes on long enough, you may never get back to 100%. It's not a feel good. During a time where I'm trying to find positive stories, and this one when I saw it, I'm like, oh God. But there are so many people asking about it, and in live streams, and so many people were upset that I didn't talk about it yesterday, even though I explained in the comment section, like, I want to, when this is a good story, I want to talk about it. Right now, he's in it. There's no updates, and his family can't visit him because of COVID guidelines, where they're trying to keep patients away from visitors coming in. We don't have a testing system, so you just don't know. So they're trying to make sure they're separated. And of course, there's numerous reasons why a hospital doesn't want that getting in there. And basically, his wedding ring is on his. I believe that they said the nurse has tied it to his ankle. They removed a colloid cyst on Tuesday, and they're just waiting to see some improvement. And yeah, it's all touch and go right now. His wife put up a post on Instagram that if you're not moved by it at all, I don't know what to say. And yeah, it's not. The family's grateful for all the support that they've been shown so far throughout this, and that will definitely continue, because as a fan base, hockey fans are pretty good people as well. I talk a lot about hockey players, but hockey fans are a pretty good bunch as well. As somebody who's thrown numerous meetups with fans, and sadly we can't have meetups until this is straightened up outside, which is frustrating because we're in the meetup season now. Meetup season starts in April and it runs through September, so it's frustrating to me because I like going out and playing street hockey and doing that for a few hours to blow off some steam and get to know people who are subscribers of the channel, and in some cases they're not even channel subscribers. They get brought by subscribers, and they meet me and they go, "Yeah, I have no idea who you are. I haven't watched anything but street hockey, so I'm here." And so again, we're all kind of stuck in this right now, and I really hope that Colby Cave has a full recovery, and we see videos of him a month from now where he's hanging out with his family and everything's absolutely 100% okay. That's the hope. Now, players, and again, this is first world problems and all that, but there is one thing about hockey players, and I've said this for a long time as well. Like, I can jog on a treadmill, I can get on a bike, and I can ride a bike for hours. I can do all kinds of exercises I want. It's not the same as skating. Skating is this unique set of muscles, and it is this whole unique, how do I put it? Basically, you can be in good shape, and you can get on a pair of skates, and if you haven't skated in a while, it hurts like hell. It really hurts the ankles, and I know that from experience, where when I've jumped on a pair of skates anytime in the last 5 years, it hurts. And it doesn't matter what kind of shape I'm in, it hurts. And so for hockey players right now, the challenge they're having is, yeah, they may have home gyms, they may have various machinery that they can use to stay muscular and in shape, but it's not skating. So the challenge they're having is trying to simulate skating and to keep those muscles in shape, so that when they do get on a pair of skates, they're not having issues with ankles and groins and all that other wonderful stuff. And that's the challenge they're having. So the New York Times has an article today on that, and on the challenge facing hockey players trying to stay in shape. And for people saying, well, they're not going to play for a long time anyways, you still need to stay in shape. Even if players watching the news are, yeah, we're not going to be playing hockey until 2022. Even if there's people saying that, they still have to stay in shape. There has to be a just in case somebody figures something out. Just in case there's some kind of and again, I always hear, well, vaccine. Well, in between now and a vaccine, there will be some kind of a mitigation, which will allow us to not return to 100% normal life, but something more normal than this. So there's going to be something in between now and then that will allow some sense of normalcy and may allow professional sports to come back on some limited amount. And I've said this before. It may very well be that, let's say a player playing for St. Louis, he's got a cough. We test him. Oh, he's positive. All right, well, you take these three medications together, and it'll keep you from getting sick, and you're in isolation, but you'll be back in about a week. That kind of thing. and it may end up being treated like a worse version of the flu. And if they're, and again, I know people are going to say, well, that you can't do that. You can't do that. At some point, something's going to happen where we see some kind of a mitigation. And I don't know what that looks like. I know there's a lot of things in testing right now. And I heard a virologist on TV saying it'll probably be a combination of meds for people who have HIV. That's no longer a death sentence. HIV is no longer a death sentence. You take a various drugs that keeps the HIV at bay, and you can go on and live a pretty regular, normal life out of it. So we're probably going to see some kind of combination of medications. I'm sure that if you watch the news, you've heard of at least a couple of them. We'll probably see some kind of a combination. And that's far more likely and far more likely to happen soon than any kind of a vaccine situation. So, I am, again, trying to stay as optimistic as possible. I get concerned at how polarizing all of this is, and I try to find something in the middle that makes more sense to me. So, yeah. And players simulating ice skating makes sense, because once something comes together, and again, they're staying in isolation. The fact that we haven't seen a lot of reports of positives coming out, that tells me they're doing a very good job in self-isolation on the American side of things too. And hey, there is still always, if you don't have any hope right now, that's terrifying. That's where things get sort of terrifying. And so for me, that's important. So I hold on to that every single day. If I didn't, I'm not getting up. I'm not making videos. I'm just going to sit in bed and watch Tiger King all over again, because there's so much to unpack there. The girl loses her arm, and that barely gets a mention. It's just sort of, yeah, so all right, so who wants a refund for today, or we can just defer it to tomorrow, because, yeah, it's just an arm came off. It's just, these things happen. I don't even know if it was the Tiger. Sometimes they just fall off. Really, seriously, come on. Tiger, get your arm out of there. Let's go. All right, just put the arm right back on. That's how it works. I had Legos as a kid. Just stick it right back on. Seriously, that doesn't even get more than like 10 seconds. I just, oh, that's where her arm went. And next up. Okay, so I'd probably be doing that. All right, thank you guys so much, though, for all of your support during this. This is, of course, an interesting and unique time in life that we will all look back years down the road and say, wow, that really sucked. But we'll get through it. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. I've noticed an uptick in subscribers, which means that there's been some browsers who've been hitting subscribe. So thank you guys so much for that. That gets YouTube off my back a little bit when I'm going through the app. All right, yeah, subscriptions are up. And then it goes, yeah, look at you. Yeah, thanks. Anyways, thanks again for watching. It means a lot, and I will talk to you again soon.